Hello there and welcome to Fastmarkets Middle East Iron and Steel event here in Dubai. This is the live lounge. I'm Georgia Tolley, and joining me today on our sofas is Anna Griffin, Chief People Officer and Head of ESG at Arabian Gulf Steel Industries. Now, with 23 years of experience, Anna's expertise expands sustainability, business strategy, global operations, and corporate governance. Her impressive career includes time at PwC's Director of Global Operations, Business Strategy, and Transformation. And she has extensive industry knowledge across the steel, energy, oil, and gas, and mining sectors worldwide. Anna's committed to advancing operational efficiencies, leadership, and people-centric solutions. She champions a people sustainability agenda that emphasizes diversity, equity, and of course, inclusion. Anna's also driving a net zero agenda at the AGSI through embedding sustainability into the company's DNA, while shaping the future of work and championing environmental stewardship. Her vision is to take accelerated steps towards the carbon neutrality and net zero by 2050 vision, pioneering sustainable practices across her company and for the sector at large. Anna, it's a great pleasure to have you join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's good to have you here, and I want to just kick things off with a little bit more about your extensive career journey and actually what led you to your current role, because you're Chief People's Officer, but you're also Head of ESG. How would you say those two roles are connected?
Well, let me start a little bit about myself. So I actually started in mining, diamond mining. I worked for De Beers for a number of years. I'm a gemologist by trade with education in finance and operations and MBA. But I started in mining as a diamond valuer. So I worked in London for a number of years in pricing, diamond auctions, sales and marketing, in Antwerp for a bit as well, because that's a diamond hub. In mines as well in South Africa, Botswana, Namibia. So that was my start in that industry. Then I moved to Australia, where I worked more in AP LNG, so Asia Pacific LNG, as well as energy sector. But I worked for BHP there in uranium mine as well, and gold mine. So in the middle of Australia, in the desert,
the middle of nowhere. Let's be honest. When you're in the middle of the desert in Australia, you are very far away.
Yes, it was great, because I was actually one of the just few women in a camp in the uranium mine there, but it was a great experience. So then I moved to PwC. So I spent over a decade, almost 13 years with PwC in Australia and Southeast Asia. So I was based in Indonesia, Singapore, back in Australia, then in Middle East as well, where I actually led the digital transformation for Workforce of the Future for Middle East. All the countries in Middle East where PwC has offices. So that was a great experience in itself as well. But I thought that it's for me time to go back to industry, and I joined AGSI as a CPO, so Chief People Officer, and then also took a role of ESG head, and how those roles are, they are very much interconnected. Actually, we thought very much with our leadership team, how we can not only combine the roles, but we thought a strong link between the two, because as a CPO, chief people officer, it's not just about HR. It's actually taking people as a core of your assets, as a core of your business strategy. So the CPO linkage to ESG is in area of people engagement, social responsibility, making the employee engagement as well, human rights. So looking at that angle from the chief people officer point of view, but also from ESG in terms of the governance as well. The diversity, inclusion, equity, it's a huge part of CPO role. And of course, ESG looks at the diversity and inclusion, very much. So I think that's pretty much in a nutshell how those two roles are engaged.
Well, I see now how clearly linked they are. It's interesting.
Yes.
Beforehand, I wasn't quite sure what the symmetries would be, but you really can see that on many different laterals,
Yes.
the two clearly meet. And I'm going to dive into the ESG side of your role first, if that's okay, because, well, we all know that these heavy emitting sectors are responsible for nearly 30% of global emissions. What's so refreshing about many of the people I've spoken to at this event is everyone's completely open and honest about that now. We've moved past the numbers, we're now talking about solutions. And you are real pioneers in sustainable steel making. How is your company addressing that climate change agenda?
Yes, it's very highly on our agenda, sustainability and climate change. And I have to say that we are the very first company in the UAE and actually in the world steel company to achieve carbon neutrality. So what it means is that we are net zero steel. So we've achieved carbon neutrality this year. In May, we were certified for zero emissions as well as carbon neutrality by global auditing company. And what it means is that we put sustainability in a core of our business strategy. But the way we achieve that is, first of all, there are a number of pillars actually to our net zero operations. First of all is that we are based on 100% recycled steel raw material sourced locally. So it's basically 100% scrap, steel scrap. And that is made in a state-of-the-art technology in our steel plant, which is induction furnace. So what it means is that induction furnace doesn't emit any CO2 because it doesn't require oxygen in a steel making process. So there is no CO2 carbon emissions, there's no NOx, there's no SO2, so any toxic gases emitted in the steel making process. We also have induction furnace is powered by completely by electricity. So we have renewable energy that is supplied to our plant, which makes it also reduces the emissions. We've made a lot of progress in terms of electrification of our machinery, so that is also moving from fossil fuel to electricity over the years, which improve the carbon emissions or reduce the carbon emissions. And what's also is important to mention about AGSI is that, and the process of our operations, is that we recycle and reuse completely 100% our operational waste. So what it means is that we are epitome of circular economy. So we use the recycled steel, we make it into new steel, and we produce buildings and sustainable cities. So it's endless use of steel. That's what it makes the circularity of our steel. So We're very, very proud of being net zero steel and first in the world carbon neutral steel plant.
I mean, it's huge. That is a huge step forward. I've heard a lot about, green steel and how the market's moving towards that. I understand that that's something slightly different potentially to what you're doing. Yes.
Well, so this is a subject that is very much discussed now, because what is green steel?
Well, yes.
Right. Net zero is net zero. It's zero.
Yeah.
Green steel, everyone has its own definition for green steel in terms of emissions. Is it 0.5 or 0.7 or 0.1? It depends how how people define green steel, and there isn't any terminology that is actually there in the industry. So that's something that it's being discussed even at government level or regulatory levels.
They need to reach a standard, I suppose, for it to be trusted.
Yes, exactly. So that's it's not an easy subject, but of course it's something that has to be defined.
As someone deeply involved in driving forward this sort of vision around net zero steel, are there other initiatives that you've been involved in? Obviously, there are initiatives within your own company that you've just outlined, but how about sort of within the wider market?
Yes, so we are involved in quite a few initiatives. I think the most recent one is the Industrial Transition Accelerator. And what it is, it's a global initiative which was launched at COP28 by the COP28 presidency, together with the UN Climate Change and Bloomberg Philanthropies and Mission Possible Partnership, so MPP. It's a global initiative that has that aims to accelerate decarbonization of the heavy emitting sector. So not only steel, but cement, aviation, transportation, shipping, and those very heavy emitting industries that contribute to nearly 30% of global emissions. So we are signatory to that. So we signed up at COP28 and just a few months ago, last month I think it was, we actually were the first company that signed partnership with ITA to be the kind of like a champion for MENA region to decarbonize, to help decarbonize the sector. So there are a few other companies that also signed a MOU or a letter of intent. That was announced by His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, and we went to New York during the Climate Week, where we had a number of discussions with the ITA and the wider group. It was like a leadership council of ITA during the Climate Week, and we discussed a number of barriers that are kind of standing in a way to accelerate the decarbonization. So, for example, things like demand for green product, which is something that may prevent offtakes or more investments into decarbonization of the heavy emitting industries. Also regulations as well, and standardization, so standards, coding, and access to renewable energy. That's a big one for everyone, I think.
And in many ways, renewable energy needs to be government-led, because it's such a capex heavy start. You know, if you want to build a solar panel farm, you need a huge amount of money.
Yes, and also, even though we want to have renewable energy on our plants, let's say even solar panels, but we can't, because this is how the UAE operates here, for example. Yeah. So that's a big initiative for us. We are currently working with ITA pretty much every day. I am in touch with them, and we're looking at those barriers, because I think demand is a big one for us. So the other initiative that I'm leading is raising awareness for green products, and in particular for us it's green steel, because a lot of developers don't really, in the built environment, are not aware that there is such,
there are green options.
Yeah, green options, the alternative to raw materials for building sustainable cities or sustainable buildings. So we're raising the awareness and educating stakeholders to understand that there is that option, and it's available right now here in the UAE.
I'm going to turn now to the other side of your job,
Yes.
the people-focused, the people's officer side of your job, although I am aware that both are linked. And I'd like to talk about this phrase, workforce for the future, because I know that you've been instrumental in leading this in your current role. Could you flesh out what that means for me?
Yes, so workforce of the future, it's discussed very often right now because the dynamics of the workforce in general changed. And the workforce and people are now, especially after pandemic, they reevaluated what it means for them to work, how they want to work, whether they want to work, whether they want to, shift jobs or even leave their jobs. So there are a number of aspects under that, and so the talent issue or talent gaps are now really a concern, because there is a the talent gaps, if you know what I mean. So the search for the competition for talent is really fierce. And
I think it's partly because the younger generation don't
Yes.
want to go into heavy industries, or at least I've heard many people suggest that that's the case.
yeah, so the heavy industries, it's actually quite challenging to attract a new generation, and the Gen Zers have entered the workforce. They want to work very differently. They have very different expectations, and this industry is a very traditional industry. It's not that like tech industry where you can work from home all the time,
Or flexibly work,
Yeah,
suddenly decide to work from 11 till 8 or
Yes.
9 rather than
So it's
8 until 5.
So attraction is a big problem. So now the companies need to understand how to attract people. What should the employee value proposition be? What should the culture be? But also the retention. Because now people are switching jobs much more often. They switching not only jobs, the industries as well. The barriers to switching jobs are much lower, or people just want to take time off, for example. So attracting talent is very important. Now, another thing is the skill shortages. So there are skill gaps in terms of what the skills are needed right now and what also they're going to be needed in the future. And with the technological advancements, the automation of work, how work is now being done, how it's going to be done, it kind of caused a lot of shortages in skills. New technologies, especially in hard-to-abate sector, there are a lot of technologies, innovation that are going to be in place where we may not see skills yet developed. So green hydrogen, for example, or so that this industry is facing huge shortages of skills, which actually brings me to specifically in steel industry and heavy industry to green skills.
Yes, how are you bringing people in? How are you making sure that people are learning the right skills that they need?
We are focusing on, first of all, reskilling and upskilling.
Okay.
internally, right? So we make sure that we map the skills that are needed now and that are going to be needed in the future, and short-term, medium-term, and long-term future. So skills that are needed now may not be needed in 5 years. 5 years time, or we may not have skills that will be needed in 5 years time. We don't have them now, so we need to think about that. We need to understand what those skills are going to be, because we also are bringing automation into our steel plants. And we see huge demand for green skills right now across the sector. And the demand for green skills actually grew much faster than supply. So in between 2023 and 2024. So in 1 year, the demand grew by 12%, whereas supply just 6%. So you see those,
So it's getting worse. Ultimately,
yes.
Every year it's getting worse.
Yes. So basically now we need to really invest in upskilling and reskilling, upskilling, and looking at what green skills we will need to close the gap of projected demand by 2050. And the 2050 is the net zero vision, that we have the government put in place. So we see a lot of gaps in that. So when it comes to workforce of the future, is actually thinking ahead, what those skills what the workforce will be, will look like, and that's also what people are looking for in a job. So the culture, the leadership, inspiring leadership. People are leaving and joining and quitting for different reasons that we may think, or employers may think. So employees, are still kind of trying to attract and retain people in the same old ways, while at the same time the workforce, the people are joining for different reasons that they may think. So for example, there are studies, research done on the reasons why employees are leaving, for example. So it's more around not being valued by the company, not being valued by the manager, not having sense of belonging, not having career progression or development. Whereas employers think that people are leaving because of the compensation, for example. So more kind of transactional aspects, but employees now are looking for, especially the newer generation, more relational aspects of the jobs. So
that's fascinating. That's really interesting about this sort of generational shift that we're seeing. Let's look to the future, because we're sort of on that subject already, but I'm going to turn it back on you again. I want to know about what you hope your legacy might be, both professionally and personally. What would you like people to remember you for?
I'm executive coach, actually, a leadership coach. So I look at, I always want to push people outside of their comfort zone and show them that they are capable of much more than what they think they are. So I'm always pushing people to see their fullest potential and do more and more, and inspiring them to actually be more courageous, more bold in their decisions, be more confident. So I think that's something that I want to be remembered for, that kind of inspiring, that showing people that they can do more than they actually think they can.
That lovely, the all-important nudge
Yes.
to move people out of their comfort zone.
Yes.
That's really interesting, and that's a very sort of empathetic answer in many ways, very outward-looking answer. Now, as we come to the end of our conversation, I'm going to move to the question that I ask all of my Live Lounge interviewees, because the theme this year of the event is Transform Tomorrow Together. What does that mean to you? Everyone's given very different answers. It's really interesting. And what would be your sort of vision personally and professionally, and with the company that relates to that theme?
The first thing that pops to my mind is it's about collaboration. Collaboration to drive common goal, and particularly sustainability. I think this is important. We can accomplish much more together than individually. And I always say about if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Oh, I like that. I haven't heard that before.
Yes, so and now they also added another kind of element to it. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast together, get aligned.
Ah, okay.
So
get aligned.
Yes, so that's I just heard that as well. Someone, one of my old mentors said that. So I thought, okay, getting aligned. So that collaboration, I think, is important. The tomorrow part of that theme that you said, I think it's about a reminder that the actions we take today will add up to better future. So whatever we do today will have knock-on effect, and it will add up to the better future. And I always say 1 millimeter shift every day will actually add up to so much of accomplishment of even if you just shift 1 millimeter every single day, or 1%, do something better 1% every single day, that will add up to something bigger.
Really lovely to hear that. A really lovely positive note, I think, for us to end our interview on. So, Anna, thank you very, very much for your time. It's been a great pleasure. And thank you to all our Live Lounge listeners, whether you're listening here within the event or later at home. Please remember to hear more interviews just like that. You just need to subscribe to our podcast. You can find that on all the usual platforms, be it YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or Amazon. And if you are interested in more events in the steel industry, then please head to the metal section at fastmarkets.com.